A cold wind swept across the plains as dusk rolled over the ranch roofs like a slow, creeping tide. The sun had disappeared behind the jagged horizon, leaving behind a pale wash of light that made the world feel both endless and intimate. Inside the small wooden chapel, the flickering of candle flames threw playful shadows across the walls, highlighting the rough-hewn beams and the simple decorations of wildflowers and pine. The wedding had been quiet and understated, just as Clara had always imagined it, though reality had a way of twisting expectations. Now, with the last of the guests gone and the night settling, like a heavy blanket over the land, the chapel felt hollow, almost painfully intimate. Clara stood by the window, her hands clenched at her sides, feeling the tremor of nerves running through her. Her white dress, hand-stitched and slightly wrinkled from the long day, felt heavier than usual. Each fold seemed to press down on her chest, reminding her of all the weight she carried, not just the physical garment, but the expectation of being a wife, of starting a new life with a man she barely knew beyond friendly familiarity. The moonlight poured through the glass, cold and bright, and she shivered, pressing her arms against herself as though she could hold her scattered thoughts together that way. Footsteps approached behind her, soft and measured. Elias Ward, the cowboy she had just married, moved through the chapel with the calm certainty of someone who had spent a lifetime alone and learned the language of quiet. He paused a few feet away, tilting his hat slightly back, his eyes reflecting both concern and something she could not quite name. He didn't speak immediately, understanding that some silences were meant to be held, not broken. When he finally did, his voice was low, smooth, carrying a steadiness that seemed almost unnatural in its constancy.
"Clara?"
She turned slightly, unsure if she was ready to be confronted with the question, yet needing it, needing him to acknowledge that she existed beyond her fears. I'm sorry," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I don't mean to. She swallowed hard, her throat tightening as the words threatened to dissolve into sobs. "It's all too much. Everything hurts tonight. I feel like I'm being pulled apart." Elias took a careful step closer, slow enough that she could retreat if she needed to. His hands stayed relaxed at his sides, open, patient. There was a gentleness in the way he approached her, a recognition that she was not merely fragile but vulnerable, in a way that demanded protection. "You're scared," he said simply. She nodded, biting her lip to stop it from trembling. Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes and threatened to spill over. "It's my first time being married, my first time living with someone, my first night away from everything I've known. I feel lost. I feel like I'm too small for all of this." Elias exhaled slowly, a breath that carried the weight of countless lonely nights on the plains. He had known loneliness, had known the ache of wanting to be connected without knowing how to bridge the distance. He lowered himself slightly, enough to meet her gaze eye to eye. His presence was firm yet unobtrusive, offering steadiness without imposing it. "Clara, look at me," he said. Her eyes, wide and glimmering with unshed tears, met his. There was no judgment there, no impatience, just quiet, unwavering attention. His voice, when it came again, was a balm. "You don't have to pretend to be brave for me. You don't owe me that. You don't owe me anything tonight except honesty." The tears she had been holding back finally fell, slipping down her cheeks, warm and insistent. He reached up, hand hovering a moment, giving her space to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed the tears gently from her face, his touch feather-light. "Nothing happens tonight that hurts you," he said. "Not your heart, not your mind, not a single part of you. I'm not here to take anything from you, Clara. I'm here to walk beside you." Her breath caught in her throat, a hitch that made her chest ache. "But what if I'm not enough?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You could never be not enough," he said simply, his tone absolute and unwavering. He stepped closer, draping his coat over her shoulders when he saw her shiver. The heavy fabric smelled faintly of leather and dust, grounding her in a way the vastness of the night could not. She wrapped herself in it, drawing comfort from its weight and the quiet reassurance that someone else was there, steadfast and vigilant. They moved to the bench near the fireplace, the flames casting a golden glow that danced across the wooden walls. Clara curled up in the corner, clutching the coat tightly around herself. Elias sat at the other end of the bench, leaving space that was respectful, not distant. He did not press, did not hurry. They simply existed in the same quiet, sharing a moment of vulnerability that felt almost sacred. Minutes passed in silence, filled only with the occasional crackle of the fire and the distant call of night birds. Clara's breathing began to steady as the warmth of the flames and the presence of the cowboy seeped into her bones. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to exhale fully, to let the tension in her shoulders dissolve just a little. "I'm sorry I'm like this tonight," she whispered, her voice fragile. He shook his head, a small, imperceptible motion, his gaze steady. "Don't apologize. Fear isn't weakness. It's proof you care about what comes next. And I care too, Clara, more than you know." She looked at him then, truly looked, noticing the slight lines at the corner of his eyes, the quiet strength in his hands, the calm in the set of his shoulders. He was not perfect, but he was present, and that was enough. More than enough. She let her head tilt slightly, resting against the edge of the bench, feeling the steady rhythm of his presence beside her. The moonlight shifted through the window, and for the first time that evening Clara felt a fragile, flickering thread of peace settle within her. Elias' voice was low, almost a murmur, but it held a promise. "I'll protect you tonight. From fear, from worry, from anything that might hurt you, you're safe with me." Clara's lips trembled, a tiny relieved smile breaking through the anxiety. She drew a deep breath and held it, feeling the tension ease slowly, steadily, as if each inhale brought her a little closer to courage. For the first time she realized she did not have to be perfect. She did not have to have all the answers. She only had to be honest, to allow someone to walk beside her, and to trust that they would not let go. The ache in her chest softened. The uncertainty became a quiet hum, and the night, which had once felt unbearably vast, seemed to shrink around them, enclosing them in a cocoon of warmth, safety, and unspoken promise. For the first time since she had said her vows, Clara felt that maybe, just maybe, she could survive this new life and perhaps even begin to thrive in it with the cowboy who had silently promised to be there no matter what. The fire crackled on, the wind whispered against the windows, and somewhere deep in the vast plains outside, the world waited, but inside the chapel, all that mattered was the fragile, steady heartbeat of trust between them. The night deepened, settling over the ranch like a velvet cloak, and the wind outside softened into a gentle whisper. Inside the chapel, the fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting a soft amber light across the wooden walls. Clara sat on the bench, still wrapped in Elias's coat, feeling its weight press comfortingly against her shoulders. She had stopped trembling, but a lingering tension remained in her chest, a reminder that the day had been overwhelming. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers intertwined as she tried to steady the fluttering of her thoughts. Elias remained beside her, a quiet presence, not pushing, not demanding, simply being. That quiet companionship was more grounding than anything she had known before. She finally lifted her gaze, looking at him in the dim light. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. "Even after all these years on the ranch, all the work, all the nights alone, do you ever feel like it's too much?" Elias tilted his head slightly, considering her question. He hadn't expected it, yet it wasn't unwelcome. "Every night," he admitted after a moment. "There are nights when the wind howls, and the darkness presses in, and it feels like the world might swallow me whole. But I've learned to wait. I've learned to breathe through it, and I've learned to trust that it will pass." His gaze shifted to hers, steady and unflinching. "Fear is not weakness, Clara. It's proof that you're alive, proof that you care, and feeling it doesn't make you any less capable." Clara's shoulders loosened slightly, the words settling into her like a balm. "I feel so small sometimes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Like I'm just a piece of dust in the world, and I'm not sure I can carry all of this. Life, marriage, expectations." She paused, swallowing hard. "I don't even know if I know how to be someone's wife." Elias nodded slowly, as though he had expected this confession all along. "No one knows at first," he said gently. "You learn, step by step, night by night. You don't have to have all the answers tonight or tomorrow or even next year. You just have to try, and sometimes that's enough." Clara looked down at her hands, twisting the fabric of his coat between her fingers. The sensation was grounding, the familiarity of the texture and scent, bringing her back from the edge of her swirling thoughts. I don't want to hurt anyone," she murmured. "I don't want to disappoint you." "You could never disappoint me," Elias replied, his tone calm and certain. He reached out slowly, hesitating only a moment before brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. The movement was gentle, careful, respectful, and Clara felt a warmth bloom in her chest at the simple act. All I've ever wanted, Clara, is honesty. Truth. You being yourself is more than enough. I don't need perfection. I just need you. Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time she felt the weight of all her fear begin to dissolve. She noticed the slight lines around his eyes, the faint shadows under his brows, the way he exuded quiet strength without demanding attention. There was something reassuring in the constancy of him, a promise without words that he would remain even when the night grew dark or the world became overwhelming. They sat in silence for a long time, each listening to the crackle of the dying fire, the occasional shift of wind against the windows, the soft sighs of the wooden floorboards as the building settled. Clara felt a rare peace descend upon her, a sensation she had almost forgotten existed. She was not alone. She was not expected to carry everything at once. She could simply exist and be seen. Finally she spoke again, her voice small but steadier. "Will you tell me what you see when you look at me?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. "I feel like I'm still learning who I am, and I don't know if you see the right person." Elias met her gaze fully, his eyes unflinching. "I see someone brave," he said simply. "Someone who has lived in her own world, faced her own fears, and is stepping into something completely unknown. I see someone who is willing to try even when it's terrifying. I see someone who matters, more than I can put into words." He paused, letting the sincerity of his voice sink into the quiet room. "And I see someone I want to walk beside, night after night, no matter what comes." Clara felt a lump rise in her throat, tears pricking her eyes again. Not of fear this time, but of relief, of gratitude, of a connection that she had longed for without even realizing it. She swallowed hard, trying to anchor herself. I think I can do that," she whispered. "Step by step, night by night, if you're beside me." Elias gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Always," he said. The room fell into quiet again, but it was no longer tense. It was comfortable, warm, familiar. Clara leaned slightly against the back of the bench, letting the coat and the presence of the man beside her support her. She realized that the fear hadn't vanished, and it never would entirely, but it no longer felt unbearable. She could carry it with her because someone was there to help share the weight. Outside, the wind had softened entirely, and the first faint hints of stars appeared in the deep navy sky. Inside the chapel, the fire cast a soft glow on the walls, and the quiet crackling of the embers filled the room like a heartbeat. Elias shifted slightly, enough to let her know he had moved, but not so much that it disturbed the fragile peace they had built. Clara felt herself relaxing further, letting her mind settle for the first time since the ceremony. "I'm scared," she admitted softly, leaning just a little closer, not for warmth, though that was welcome, but for the reassurance of proximity, but not in the same way anymore. "I don't feel alone." "You're not alone," Elias said, his voice low and steady, almost a whisper, against the background of the fire. "And you never will be." Clara exhaled slowly, feeling a tightness in her chest loosen. "Thank you," she murmured. "For staying." "Always," he replied, his hand brushing the edge of hers. A tentative but comforting gesture. "There is nothing we need to rush, nothing we need to force. Tonight is only the beginning. We have time." She nodded, closing her eyes for a moment, absorbing the calm that his presence offered. The world outside, with all its uncertainties, suddenly felt a little more manageable. She could face it, knowing that someone steadfast, patient, and kind was walking beside her. The night stretched before them, long and quiet, filled with the soft sounds of the ranch settling into darkness. Clara felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a gentle reassurance that she had never known before. She wasn't expected to be perfect. She wasn't expected to have all the answers. All she needed to do was be herself, and let the cowboy beside her show her that she was enough. Elias shifted again, a little closer this time, giving her a sense of safety without pressure. Clara felt herself leaning just slightly, trusting him to be steady, to remain patient. She realized that for the first time, she wasn't just surviving the night, she was beginning to feel the fragile beginnings of home. And for someone who had always lived with uncertainty and fear, that was more than enough. Hours passed, marked only by the slow dimming of the fire and the faint rise and fall of their breathing. Clara knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears and new adjustments. But for this night she felt a quiet, enduring strength. She had someone to walk beside her, She had someone to share her fears with. And that, she realized, was the foundation of everything she had ever longed for. Elias finally spoke, his voice soft but steady. Rest now. Tomorrow will come with its own trials, but tonight we just exist, together. Clara let her head tilt slightly toward him, accepting the comfort of his words. The tension that had gripped her for so long finally began to ease, replaced by the warmth of trust, the slow bloom of courage, and the quiet joy of knowing that she was not alone in the world anymore. The night, which had once seemed so vast and terrifying, had become a small, safe space where she could simply be, and that, she realized with a deep, tender relief, was enough.